Okay, we're going to get started. Just to let everybody know that this session is being recorded. So welcome, happy Pride. Today's topic, intersectional realities, resisting, supporting, and healing with Dr. Andrew B Campbell will remind us of why it's important that we celebrate Pride. My name is Leslie Oliver, and I am the EDI specialist with the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Before we begin with introductions, I'd like to make you aware of some resources available to attendees. The closed captions have been enabled. You can access the captions by hitting the CC button in your control bar. Through that control, you can make them larger, you can remove them if you find it distracting, but they are enabled in case they're needed. The chat function has been disabled for this event. If you have a question, please submit it in the Q&A tab in your control options, and we will review them at the end. And next, we'll review the land acknowledgement offered by Mars Nurani, our communications specialist.
Thank you, Leslie. Bonjour, everyone. We acknowledge that Western University is located on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenape, and Chonnonton nations, on lands connected to the London Township and Sombra Treaties of 1796 and the Dish with One Spoon Wampum. With this, we respect the long-standing relationships that Indigenous nations have with this land, as they are the original caretakers. We acknowledge historical and ongoing injustices that Indigenous peoples, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit endure in Canada, and we accept responsibility as a public institution to contribute towards revealing and correcting miseducation, as well as renewing respectful relationships with Indigenous communities through our teaching, research, and community service. Thank you, Chimiigwech.
Thanks, Mars. Can you also remind us about the Western Equity Census?
Yes, of course. We would like to remind students, staff, and faculty members at Western to complete the Western Equity Census. Beginning in October of 2021, the Western Equity Census is the first ever comprehensive demographic survey for all staff, students, and faculty, which would help us to understand the demographics of the university and enhance the support of diversity and equity within our community. The census, which is voluntary and confidential, takes less than 5 minutes to complete. It is available through My Human Resources for employees and Student Center for students. I will be putting some links in the chat as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Mars. I feel like we no longer need to introduce Dr. ABC to the Western community, but just in case you weren't able to hear him speak previously, allow me to quickly tell you about our esteemed colleague and beloved educator. Dr. Andrew B Campbell, or Dr. ABC for short, is a graduate of the University of Toronto with a PhD in educational leadership, policy, and diversity. He's an Ontario certified teacher and has been an educator for over 25 years in Jamaica, the Bahamas, and Canada. He's presently a teaching and learning coordinator in the Master of Teaching program at OISE at the University of Toronto and an adjunct assistant professor at Queen's University in the Professional Master of Education. And in recent news, Dr. Campbell began a continuing teaching stream appointment in the Department of Curriculum, Teaching and Learning with OISE effective July 1st, 2022, which I agreed with him was great news. Excellent news would have been if it was with the Faculty of Education at Western. However, I digress. He's authored 2 books, Teachable Moments with Dr. ABC, A Spoonful for the Journey, and The Invisible Student in the Jamaican Classroom. He also has a number of publications in journals and book chapters focusing on areas of EDI, 2S LGBTQI+ issues in education, racism and anti-Black racism, and educational leadership. He has presented numerous conferences and has delivered many presentations as a workshop facilitator, keynote, and motivational speaker. He loves fashion, traveling, and bringing community together for a good meal. And as you're about to witness, he loves people and he pours his heart and soul into his keynote speaking events. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Andrew B Campbell back to our Western community.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Leslie. Absolutely. I appreciate the welcome. I appreciate the space. I appreciate being here and being in conversation with all of us. And I say that because I want to make sure you understand that there's going to be a section for Q&A, and absolutely be able to participate in that so we can really be in conversation as we're really supposed to be. And so today we're having this conversation about intersectional realities, and together resisting, supporting, and healing. And it's important that we have this conversation as a team, as a group, as individuals, as people, as students, as faculty, as just members of the community, that we do have these conversations about our intersectional realities and the idea that we are just not one anything, but we have multiple identities. We come into the spaces with multiple backgrounds. We come from multiple spaces. You know, the other day, somebody asked me, we were having this conversation, I think I shared it at also at Western, when somebody said to me, tell me about the Black experience. And I said, what is the Black experience? Because the idea of that there is a Black experience, that is not true, because you have different kind of experiences. And the same thing with our 2S LGBTQIA plus people. There's no such thing as a LGBTQ experience, because we have multiple realities and multiple how we come to these spaces. And so we want to talk a little bit, as I said, welcome Pride Month, about how do we do this work. And just this morning, as I started, just reminding myself that I'm presenting today, so, I had to remind my friends on social media that, in a very jovial way, because that's my personality, that the freedom we're experiencing, the fact that we can go out in Pride and wear our best clothes and live our best lives and dance the night away and have all the drinks we want, all of that should not be taken lightly. We have to remember that someone literally fought for us to be able to do that. I want to really pause for us to understand the little things that we enjoy. Having a bunch of friends, and we can all go out as LGBTQ people. You could be dance with each other. You could kiss a partner. The first time I kissed a guy in public in Canada, I literally looked around because I was like, is this safe? Because I don't come from that reality. But there are many of you who are listening to me today, and you'll be listening to this video recorded months from now. And I hope many of faculty who are listening will use this video in your classroom. That is why we're doing this series, not just for a moment and walk away, but if you're doing courses in psychology and sociology and equity, this is a video to share in your class, and you can expand it. So I'm speaking to the students who are listening to me directly to understand that the realities of 2S LGBTQ people, they are different. And so the idea that you don't come from a certain space, I want us to have that real, authentic cultural humility that is lacking in many of our spaces, to have that cultural humility to say, I do not understand his experience because I don't come from that space or that reality. And so we want to talk about that. We want to talk about the fact that there are intersections, and I hope you realize I listed a number of the intersections, and I listed the intersections of age and ability and race and sexual orientation and class. But there are also intersections of disabilities. We tend to forget that quite a bit. We're also intersections of neurodiversity. There are also intersections of religion. There are intersections of mental health and well-being. There are intersections of family. I want us to understand, when we come to the Pride conversation, it's not always about the white, middle class, able-bodied reality, but there are many realities. There are many realities. I want to really underline that because this is necessary, especially when I'm speaking to students and faculty in your teaching, in your learning, in your growing, in your unlearning, that what you see many times in a magazine and on camera and how we celebrate pride, that is just one reality. So as I celebrate pride here in Toronto in the month of June, and I live my best life, I did live my best life. There are spaces around the Caribbean and other places where people are hiding to have a little celebration in a basement or a backyard or some hidden spaces. So I want us to understand why I'm getting to the idea of resisting, because we are resisting, because even in Canada today, even in Toronto today, there's still fear of discrimination. There's still a fear of hate and homophobia. We see it in schools. We see bullying in school. We see the transphobia. There's fear of backlash. Right in Toronto, I'm not going anywhere international. I'm not going to those countries that we think are so, oh my God, they are so horrible. We're going right here into our Canadian space where I know for a fact there are communities that are scared of backlash. There are communities that are scared of backlash. There are communities that are scared and fearful of being seen, so they remain invisible, right? There are communities and spaces of people and pockets who are scared to bring their whole self to work. And you and I know we love to talk about how do we bring our whole self to the university campus. There are students who decide on a daily basis, do I bring my whole self to Western or do I leave parts of me? When I became a faculty member at OISE, that was something I negotiated. How much of myself do I bring to OISE? The good news for me and the privilege for me is that I decided I was going to bring the whole self. And there's a lot of me. Oh, there's a whole lot of me to deal with. I decided earlier on that I was going to bring my entire self to OISE. So when you see me coming up on OISE, you hear my Jamaican accent. You may even smell my good old Jamaican oxtail or curry goat, whatever I'm having for lunch that day. You see me because I want you to see me. Not just see a part of me, but see me. And the days when I don't feel like it, I still bring myself, because there are days when we are not of our best selves. And that is important, that we allow each other to really live and become and be who they are in these spaces. So right here in Canada, we see the impact. We see the pushback. You know, we have seen, especially where religion has played an integral role in us eyeing who we are. And I can speak about that because I grew up Christian in Jamaica. And I know friends who are gay and Muslim. I know friends who are gay and other religion. And I can tell you, it's a struggle. That intersection, that intersectional, for some, it's, let me be clear, for some, it's an intersection. For others, it's an intersectional reality. Two separate things. Something for us to unpack another time. So some of us, religion and sexuality meet at an intersection. But for others of us, reality, sexuality, orientation, personality, position, religion is about our intersection. It's about the layers of oppression that we face. And so intersectionality comes from that layer of oppression, multiple layers of oppression that we face. And so I want us to have that reality that the people around you are here. Yes, they are gay Christians and Muslim Christians and Hindu Christians and gay person, gay Christians and gay Muslims and gay Hindu and all of those things. They are a part of our reality. They may not be a part of your reality, but that doesn't make those persons invisible. And so we like to think that if we don't discuss it, we don't put it on a flyer, we don't put it in a magazine, we never share it in a newsletter, it does not exist. And as intelligent, amazing, critical thinkers at a university level, I want us to understand, if you erase out of a magazine my identity, that doesn't mean I don't exist. And I've seen it. I've seen it. I've been in Jamaica and I've done an article, an interview, and because the person didn't want to put a certain photograph in the paper. And I said, even if you don't put the photograph in the paper, I am still here. So you not putting the photograph in the paper, don't let me be, yes, what you're doing, you're forcing me to be more invisible, but you're not going to erase my identity. And so I'm engaging in resisting. So why am I saying this? I'm going to get to you in a quote that comes from the great Gloria Ladson Billings. Some people pronounce it different. Gloria Ladson Billings. And I love this quote. And she said, we enter the society raced. We come to school raced. We apply for jobs raced. We enter the marketplace raced. We can never leave our race at home or on a shelf. And I want us to understand that, because I've shared this very slide in this space before. That we are Black and LGBT and racialized, our indigenous 365 days a year. There's no escaping that. So I want Western to understand, when we think that we don't want certain pictures and certain images and certain discussions about 2S LGBTQI plus people to happen, what I'm telling you is that we are here and we show up as who we are. So because you don't want to engage in this conversation doesn't mean that I'm not here. And so one of the biggest things we have to understand, and I love this part, so because we are plagued by the social construct, we have to find ways to live our lives and participate in society with one aspect of our identity seems to enter the room before we do. We see it happening a lot with the conversations we have about trans people. We see that happening a lot, the conversation we have about indigenous people, the conversation we have about Black and racialized and hijab wearing and those kind of stuff. We have those conversations because those persons, they enter the room even before they do. And that's why I'm going to talk to you later on about the power of having healing and relationships. So we want to come to a place at Western where we can truly turn to each other and say, I see you. If you forget not everything I say today, please do not forget that 3 words. I see you. Ask yourself, whether you're a president or whether you're a director, your faculty, your sessional, your tenor, your student, your staff, you are janitor, you are a part of the gardening team. Ask yourself, how are the ways in which I say to 2S LGBTQ people, I see you. Not just with my words, but with my actions, with my smile, with my nod. I know when someone sees me. I have had many opportunities in my life for somebody to come into my space and I could tell that they see me. And I have as much opportunities where I can tell you that people have come close as standing in front of me and I can tell you they did not see me. So how are we here at Western saying to people who are different from us, who are still in the struggle, who are still hurting, who are still going through the trauma of who they are in the history, how do we say to these people, I see you? How do you say to these people, show up as you are? And so we have to find ways to live. And one of the biggest things we have to do is how we resist. So I want to remind every one of us that as we get into the word of resisting, that resisting is a reality for many of us. And if you are listening to me, whenever you're listening to this recording, and you have had the power and the privilege of not having to resist, I want you to realize that is a privilege, that you don't have to live your life resisting. But there are many of us who have had to make sure we hold those placards way up high. Stop Asian hate. Stop racism. Stop Islamophobia. Stop anti-Semitism. Black Lives Matter. I am a person. Stop able. Some of us have to do that constantly because our lives, our livelihood, important, are in danger. And so we have to resist. It's a tool we use. So I want to remind us, as we said before, pride began with resistance. The work of resistance is important. And if we don't resist, we see the damage in our LGBTQI plus community. We see the damage of anxiety and depression. We see the damage of shame. We see the big damage in our university of disengagement. Too many of our LGBTQ folks come to university and they just want to do the work and get out of the building because they do not feel a sense of belonging. And it happens a lot because there are lack of relationships. We have to resist because resisting is also self-care. We also resist because resisting is also self-care. Or you could switch it around and you also could say self-care is a part of my resistance. And I personally practice self-care as resistance because I want to show up a particular way to let people realize, here I am, I'm still here. I am navigating spaces not even created for me as a Black man, but as a Black immigrant man, but as a Black immigrant, a gay man. And those are my intersectional realities as a gay man, as a Black man, as a Black immigrant gay man, as a Black immigrant Christian gay man, as a Black immigrant Christian gay man who speaks in his Jamaican accent and love it and own it and walk into it himself. How do you show up? By me showing up. That is resistance. And in my book, The Invisible Student in a Jamaican Classroom, I talk about resistance is a tool. But of course, it's not the only tool. It is my job, therefore, to ensure that I open the dialogue, unpack the issues. I want to attack the facade and the pretense and unclothe the truth. There's a lot of facade, a lot of pretend. This morning, I was having a very conversation with someone and talking about the number of Black gay men who in the Caribbean, from where I am from, who end up getting married and hurting themselves, married and hurting somebody else's daughter, hurting somebody else's mother, hurting somebody else's sister, because we are forced to live a facade. We don't talk about these things in academia quite a bit, you know. We want to unpack things without unpacking some of the everyday truths. So for me, I want to make sure we understand that during the homophobia and the invisibility, we have forced a lot of men, a lot of our students, a lot of our community members, we have forced them into living a lie. I'm going to pause for dramatic effect so you can understand that I am serious, that we have forced each other to live a lie. So a gay man gets up and he says, I'm going to get married, knowing for a fact that this is not what he wants. But because you're part of a certain culture, a certain space, a certain community, that's what he's forced to do. And he's hurting, he's damaged, he's angry, he's bitter, and the relationship is damaged. It's bitter, it's pretentious, it's a facade. How are we allowing people to live their best lives and to be the best version of themselves? So I remind my teachers in training and those active in the classroom of the power that they have to heal or to hurt. The power you have for persons to show up as themselves. The power you have as people to be who they are. How are we doing that? You know, I remember my first time in Pride back in 2008 in Canada. I will never forget, the words could not express how I felt. And it wasn't that I come from a place in Jamaica where I was running and hiding on, you know, in the street or somebody was trying to stone me. I never had that experience growing up. I was bullied heavily in high school, but I learned how to navigate the space. But I want to circle something. I realized when I was older, the work I put in to navigate the space, I shouldn't have to put in that work. And so for me, living in Canada, I don't navigate the spaces as much as I used to, because there's no need for me on many spaces to navigate. And so when I came here, my first Pride in 2008, it was just amazing that I didn't have to police myself. I didn't have to figure out, can I wear this downtown or do I not? So that was my experience. But I'm going to surprise you. Everybody listen to me carefully. Fast forward to 2022, June this year, I was at Pride downtown. I met a young man, and I knew him a little bit before, but I met him. And when I saw him, I was very surprised because he looked like he was really coming into his own. And we were having a conversation. And then he reminded me that the clothes that he wore from home, listen to me carefully, living out west in a Caribbean neighborhood, heavily Caribbean racialized neighborhood, he said, this was the clothes I left my home in. And when I came downtown, I changed in this clothes. And it took me back because I, Andrew Campbell, used to do that in Jamaica. I did that growing up in Jamaica. And I, for a minute, may have forgotten that even in Canada, there are still communities, there are still people, there are still pockets and spaces where people have to navigate their identity in ways that are almost shameful. There are still people who have to navigate their identities, navigate their sexual orientation, their identity as a gay or a lesbian or trans or queer person in ways that are shameful, hurtful, traumatic, and sad. And not all of us will understand that. Yes, in 2022, someone was doing in Toronto what I did back in 1999 in Jamaica. I want that to sink in for a minute. And I didn't walk away thinking, well, you're in Canada. Duh, you don't have to do that. Because that would be my first response until I remember where he's living and who he's living with. And the fact that he shared with me about his fear for his family and his father. Scared of his dad, scared of family, and scared of the church community he was a part of. So I want us to understand when we say intersectional realities, I want us to understand, and I want to keep repeating, I am talking about all our realities. I'm not talking about your privileged reality or my privileged reality. I tell people all the while, I do understand the privilege I walk in. I walk in a privilege of title. I walk in spaces that I never knew years ago I could have walked in, and I own it. That's why I'm so sad and disappointed when many of us who are powerful and privileged refuse to recognize that you are privileged. When you say the word white privilege, people get to be offended. There is such a thing. You walk in a certain privilege, and that disallows you from understanding persons who are marginalized, their lived experience. And what I want you to do, therefore, is to approach these courageous conversations with a level of humility that is so lacking in our spaces, because you don't walk in my shoe, you don't have my experience. And so as we do this idea of resisting, I want to take you back to 2020, when the IOC Day, this was May the 17th, 2020, this was the theme, International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. And the theme was breaking the silence. And so I want to leave with us, I want to share with us that the reality for many towards LGBTQI folks in pandemic was they were trapped at home. And you may say, what? And I could tell you tons of stories that came to light. Some of you may have heard some of these stories, because many towards LGBTQ folks who navigate the world by being absent from their home spaces, they hang out in communities that they feel safer. They were trapped at home with homophobic parents, homophobic siblings in very, very, very confined spaces. Tons of stories out there. And so in the middle of that, the theme came out to break the silence. We keep silent because of our families and fear and friends and workplaces. We keep silent because of religion and customs and expectations. We keep silent because of shame. We are forced into silence. Silence is hurtful. Silence is dangerous. Silence is not living. Silence is suffering. And so there was this quote that I've held on to from 2020. And the quote says, "We examine the ways we can and must tell our stories, claim space, establish our voices, ensure we are heard." All of this is resistance. We break the silence and tell our truths, our stories. That is why I share. So people ask me, why do I share my story? Because I'm breaking the silence. I'm telling my truth. And I'm going to tell you something. I want you to listen to me carefully. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute so you could center me on the screen could center myself for a minute on the screen. I want to share something with you. I have had occasions where I'm doing a speech like this, doing a workshop, doing a speaker series, and someone is trying to still tell me that what I'm sharing, I shouldn't share. It's happening in 2021 and 2022 because people are coming from spaces and they feel like, well, I didn't go through that, or I don't know anybody, so maybe you shouldn't say that. This is one of the biggest problems we have. We are being forced not to tell our truth because people have already intercepted our truths. Ask yourself how many stories you were told of First Nations people. Ask yourself, go ahead and do that. Do your fingers and count. How many stories of First Nations people was I told? Ask yourself. And then I want you to ask yourself, how many of those stories were told to you by a First Nation or Indigenous person? Ask yourself, how many LGBTQ or 2S LGBTQ stories have I been told? And ask yourself, how many of them were told by someone who identifies as 2S LGBTQ? And you're going to understand where I'm going with my conversation. The power in telling your own story. I have walked into rooms where my story was told long before I entered the room. That version of my story by someone who is not me. So I am intentional about telling my story. I'm intentional about telling people to tell their stories. I've heard somebody say there's no such thing as a gay Muslim. I've literally heard somebody said that until I meet Muslim persons who are gay, Muslim persons who are lesbian, Muslim persons who identify themselves as queer. But someone told me a story that there's no such thing. So I tell people today, tell your story. Be seen. So that's why I'm using this theme of resisting. And the first part is about tell our stories. Telling your story, free yourself. And you don't need to rush to tell your story, but I want you to make sure you intercept others who are telling your story for you. Because we are very big on a single story. Many of us have been damaged because of a single story. Many institutions like Western and University of Toronto and the school boards we work for organizations and institutions who have long for years tell a single story about many of us. I have gone to so many places and people have a single story of a Jamaican Black man, a single story of a Jamaican gay man. And then I have to say to them, let me tell you my story. So I want us to resist by telling our stories. These are the winners of the Amazing Race Canada in 2019. I was at a conference and they told their stories. One is a faculty member, one is a doctor, a medical doctor. And when he told his stories, powerful. I was inspired. I left that room so inspired because two spirited men told their stories. Two spirited, two LGBTQI+, they told their stories. And it was powerful. It was powerful. The next thing we want to do as we do this work is ensure that we also claim space. And what I love about this other slide is the many ways that we are showing up. And we see the ways we are showing up. And I encourage us to show up as best as we can. And I'm not forcing anyone to show up because I know many of you cannot show up. In 2022, there are individuals among us who cannot show up. And as you show up, you claim space. You tell your story, you show up, you claim space. Taking up space is important. Yesterday, I was doing a workshop and we got into the conversation about seat at the table. Because everybody's talking about a seat at the table these days. And I asked the good old question I've been asking for the last maybe 4 years. Seat at the table to do what? Tell me about the seat at the table. What kind of seat is it? Is it a seat where I have to be silent? Is it a seat where it's performative so we can take a picture and show people that there's a black man at the table, there's a trans woman at the table, there's an indigenous person at the table? Is it that kind of seat? Is it the kind of seat that I got a seat at the table, but I'm literally powerless? I have no say. My signature don't count. I don't even have a vote. You know, there are communities like that, right? There are communities where you go at the table, but you can't vote. You just be there. Performance. So when we are big on a seat at the table in our equity departments, we need to question, even here at Western, when we provide communities and others with a seat at the table, ask yourself, what will they be able to do with this seat? Because many of our seats are performative. Looks good on the website. It's a very good picture on the website. So how are we claiming spaces? But I'm going to give you a very big one. Should we be pressuring ourselves to claim space, or are our institutions creating the space? So should I come to Western and claim space and force my way into spaces and beg to be in spaces and barge into spaces? Or as a Black immigrant gay man, are there spaces for me at Western? Are they safer spaces? I didn't say safe. Are they safer spaces for me at Western? Well, maybe they're not safer, but are there brave spaces for me at Western where I can be brave? Even if I don't feel safe, I could be brave. So I want you to ask yourself, even now as an equity department and division, are we creating spaces that people can actually claim? Are we establishing our voices? So when we claim space, show up, tell our stories, can we explain our voices? Right now we are seeing on our screen 2 Muslim men. One is a drag queen, Jackie Cox, on your left, from RuPaul's Drag Race. You can Google. There's a beautiful, amazing video on YouTube where he explains why he wore the American flag in his costume. He said, I had to show America, and I'm going to quote, he said, I had to show America that you can be LGBTQ and from the Middle East. And there's going to be complicated shit around that. And that's okay. I'm going to repeat. He said, I had to show, when he was asked about the costume and showing up, he said, I had to show America that you can be LGBT and from the Middle East. And there's going to be complicated shit around that. And that's okay. Jackie Cox established his voice. He was visible. He established his voice. He was brave. There was a lot of backlash. Let me make that clear. There was a lot of backlash, but he showed up. And I love him for that. Beside him is a very popular drag queen here in Canada, Mango Lassie. The person on the right is also identified. And he's a famous drag queen right here in our space, Mango Lassie. So when you refuse to, when you pretend like these people do not exist, what you're doing is violent. I'm going to say it again because somebody needs to remember I said it. When you pretend like these people are not a part of our communities and they do not exist, what you're doing is violent. I'm going to say it a third time because I feel like to say it, and I have the mic. When you pretend like these individuals do not exist, it is violence. It is erasure. It is harmful. It is violent. We are here to talk about our intersectional realities. And so after that, we want to ensure that you understand that we are heard. That is how we break the silence. That is how we break the silence. Many ways to be heard, not just demonstration, sitting on boards. I realized the power of my voice when I started to sit on boards and committees, and I spoke on panels, and I became a part of letter writing and other stuff, and writing book chapters and writing articles. So if you're listening to me, academic people, I know a lot of you like to go to certain spaces. There's a lot of ways for you to be heard in academia. Write those articles, sit on the panels, sit on the committees, be a part of the persons who are making the documents, and be a part of those who are unpacking and looking into issues, and sit on committees. Ensure we are heard. And then the great word from the great bell hooks remind us to tell our truths, tell our stories. Sometimes people try to destroy you precisely because they recognize your power, not because they don't see it, but because they see it and they don't want it to exist. Tell our stories. Claim space. Establish your voice. Ensure you are heard. Tell your truth, tell your stories. And so that's what I have for you for resisting. And I want to jump right into supporting, because many of you are listening to me, you are allies, you are co-conspirator, you are that person. And I want you to understand the importance of who you are as an ally. Many persons, I remember my own self growing up in Jamaica, and when I was being bullied in high school, and if you ask me what I wanted, and I wrote about it in my book, all I wanted was one teacher to say, leave Andrew alone. Just leave this little boy alone. That's all I wanted. When I was 11 years old, I didn't want a pride march. I don't even know what a pride march was. I didn't want pride color t-shirt. I just bought myself the cutest pride Coach bag. I don't want a pride Coach bag that cost so much money. I didn't want any pride breakfast that I attended. I didn't want to be no pride speaker, no Western LGBTQ speaker. All I wanted was a teacher and staff to say to the boys, leave Andrew alone. That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted. That is absolutely all I wanted. And so we see here Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade, when they came out as parents, protecting and loving their son. at that time was their son and showing. And I can tell you, you don't have to ask me to do the work for you. You can go Google it. You can go Google it. I was shocked at the kind of hate that was spewed out to these two parents. And for me, I never forget, all I did, I asked, so tell me, what is the response you want from a mom and a dad for their child? So in 2022, there are people who are willing to tell parents to disown and to hate and to abuse and to make homeless and to push out and to marginalize and to exclude their kids. It's happening right in our spaces. It's happening right in our spaces. So if you're listening to me and you're LGBTQ and your parents have given you the love that is measureless and strong, remember that's a part of what your experience is. But there are kids who are hiding from their parents as we speak. I know many. I've spoken to many. I was one of those as well. So if you say to me, what can I do, Dr. ABC, as an ally? I'm not giving you no big job to do. I am telling you, let us start with love. Let us start with compassion. Let us start with empathy. Let us start with respect. Let us start with caring. Let us start with those things. And when this little boy was given the love that he needed, he blossomed into the person he is today. And today, their daughter Isaiah Wade, this picture captured in 2021. She has now blossomed into a beautiful young woman because she has the love and support around her. We see how powerful this picture is of a little boy who got to be himself and transform into the person he truly should be and could be. And yes, daughter of Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union. So of course there's some privilege and power there. And I applaud this family, love them to death. But I want us to also remember that there are kids right now crying in homes and spaces and places because they're hiding. And they're hiding because of people who mean them hurt and harm. Think about this young lady is able to bloom and to blossom and to grow. Think about how many other 2S LGBTQ plus young people who weren't given this opportunity because they were not supported. So ask yourself, how will I support? How will I ensure that the people around me who are 2S LGBTQ, they understand that I am a safe person? This is a safer space. We love to talk about safe space. Tell me how you are going to be intentional about creating that safer space for those who are 2S LGBTQ and Black and brown and Asian and their various religion and any race, and they're coming out. Tell me how you plan to do that. How you plan to do that from systematic oppression. We want to understand from the great Bettina Love. I love this book by Bettina Love. And she said we have to understand where we stand in relation to systems of privilege and oppression and unlearning the habits and practices that protect those systems, which is lifelong work for all of us without exception. This is the work we're talking about of real allyship. How are we doing that? How can we do that? How will we do that? She went on and she said, our authentic relationships of solidarity and mutuality, which are not possible when we try to avoid or transcend power imbalances. How are we walking in solidarity with each other? How are we being that ally? How are we doing that? Honestly acknowledging and confronting those imbalances to create authentic relationships. If you take a picture of any slide, take a picture of this one when I'm done. Make sure you get a picture of this one. This is the work we need to be thinking about, critically thinking about it. Social change work is always rooted in collaboration, humility, and accountability. The interior journey into silence, mediation, inner wisdom, and deep joy is inextricable link to the outer work of social change. How are we doing all that must be done? And this comes to us from Bettina Love. It's an amazing book I recommend to you, Leslie, and all my people here who I love. From Dr. Bettina Love, 2019. We want to do more than just more. We want to do more than survive. Talking about abolitionist ways of teaching, powerful ways of doing. Universities have to understand there are other ways of doing pedagogy that we have been used to in the very performative colonial way. How are our pedagogies liberating those who are hurting, liberating our students? And I wrap up with this powerful image that I created and I love so much. How are we going to ensure that belonging happens in our university? How are we ensuring connections, membership, safety, identity, trust, and inclusion? And when we take away all of this stuff, one thing must remain, and that must be, one thing must remain, and that must be relationship. So I want us to remember that a lot of us, we have spent all our time talking about Black people. We have spent a lot of time talking about Indigenous people. We have spent a lot of time talking about racialized folks and LGBTQ and 2S LGBTQ folks. Can we spend some more time talking with those people? Leslie and I have had conversations. We have been in solidarity, in conversation. We have relationships. I can say that. How many of you can say you have relationships with people who are different from you? Some of you are proud. Let me go there because I'm not afraid of you. Some of you are proud. You have done good research work on Indigenous people. You have done very good writing on 2S LGBTQ people and other people. You have no relationship. University needs to start to make rules about how some of you do research. Dr. Campbell, are you really going there? Yes, I am going there. Because many of you privileged professors, oh, Dr. Campbell, you are really going. Oh, yes, I'm going. Many of you privileged professors have continuously written about people you have no relationship with. You need to stop. I said it, and I know you are offended by it, and I do not care. Many of us as professors need to stop writing about people we have absolutely no intention of having relationships with. Very powerful, privileged space you have. You need to go build a relationship. You need to put your publication on pause. You need to put your research on pause and go build relationship. It's lacking and it's destroying the very people you are researching. I said it and I mean every word of it. And so the last thing I want us to do is to think about the healing. Yes, I did say healing. How we're doing the healing. Because when I resist, Leslie, and I resist and I resist and I resist, there come a point of time when I'm impacted, I'm affected, I'm traumatized, I am hurt. How do we make sure we are healing? How are we creating those spaces in our universities where people can heal? And so I leave with you Powerful words of Audre Lorde. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. I have taken these words very, very, very seriously. Words I live by. Words I have taken with me on my journey. Words I have packed for my journey. These are the words I have packed for my journey. So when you see me living my best life in my self-care, just remember, I have been intentional about packing this for my journey. I leave it to you another quote from the great Maya Angelou. She said, my mission in life is not merely to survive. Andrew Campbell, that's me, don't want to be able to survive, but I want to thrive and do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style. These are the very words I have packed for my journey. I actually have a new office and I actually want to blow this picture up and frame it nice and put it on my wall. I want to do that because I want to make sure I pack these for my journey. I leave everything with everybody. My final slide, then we're going to take a few questions. I encourage all of us as 2S LGBTQ folks listening to me here, listen to me afar. Find yourself, find your resilience, find your resistance, find your hope, find your strength, find your people, find your voice, find your joy, find your happiness, find your power. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being in conversation with me. It is totally appreciated. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for those faculty members who will use this video and staff members in other spaces so you can have conversation with a wider audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you for sharing your story. We always appreciate the energy, passion, and honesty that you bring to your talks, especially when your honesty reminds us of the work that we have to do here at Western. Silence is violence is going to stay with me and our office. My friend in the audience texted me your quote as I was reflecting on it. And I love your invitation for all to tell their story, but also recognize that we have to work harder to make it safe and make Western an accountable campus, even in 2022, for them to tell their story and live their authentic life. We have work to do. And I know you'll hold us accountable to do it. And I invite our colleague, Dr. Anna Bowler, to moderate the Q&A section. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Anna.
Dr. ABC, thank you so much. I think that what a great way to begin the conversation by saying, don't be afraid to bring your whole self into whatever you do and into the places you're working, living. It's such an important message. I also want to let the audience know that we have put some links in the chat box that are related to the content that Dr. ABC has shared with us today. So if you haven't seen those, please check them out when you have some time. And now we're going to go through some of the questions that we have in the Q&A. So first of all, there is a message saying, thank you so much for speaking about homophobia in the Jamaican community. It is extremely rare to hear, and most often it leaves me feeling incredibly alone in the resistance. I appreciate your words today as I try to heal and be heard again and heal again.
Yeah, I definitely want to respond to that person. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much. And it's rare because people want to have a certain look of what it's supposed to be. And so we see it happen in our community where somebody will say, well, Jamaica is not like this, because when I was there and I said, yeah, you was there on vacation for a week in an all-inclusive hotel. Let's explain that that is not Jamaica. So when you go to an island and you spend 1 week in an all-inclusive hotel behind a fence, you're not having an experience that a little boy like myself who lived in a community called Waterford, that grew up in a community that was asked to leave that community because there was a scandal in my church and I had to leave that community. And I'm still, just to let you know, and this is for everybody listening. Last night I had two friends having a dinner with me from Jamaica. They were visiting, and I shared the story. And I said to one of them, I said, I don't know. I said, I'm not sure if I'm totally healed. And even sharing the story, I realized I'm not totally healed from that experience yet, because I've not shared that story more than twice in my life. Why I had to move from paying 4,000 Jamaican dollars for rent to pay 15,000 because of my safety. So when people say certain things don't happen, I will tell my story because that happened to me, where a neighbor I grew up with for years threatened my life, a group of boys threatened my life, and I moved at the age of 24 from a house paying 3 times my rent, which is more than half my salary. So when you saw me live in a community, it wasn't because I could afford it, but because I was paying literally to protect my life. So I want us to understand that is why it's so valuable to tell your story. And yes, you will continually be hurt by it, but I'm going to tell you something. You are also being healed. And I'm glad you acknowledge that. Even in this conversation, there is healing, because I brought in the oil and the wine, and I'm sure you picked that up. As I was speaking, I was intentional in pouring in the oil and the wine. And that is important, Leslie, and that is important, Dr. Anna, that when we have these conversations in our equity department, we find space also to pour in the oil and the wine. I dream, Leslie, just so you know, that I dream to be invited to Western one of these days, when the only people in the audience will either be Black folks or either be twist LGBTQ folks. And he said, but Dr. Campbell, why? Because in that space, I want to just pour in oil and wine. I just want to pour in love and healing. And that is specifically for the community, because we need more healing circles and more opportunities where people can safely feel that they are safe to heal. And I shared this with you, Anna. One more thing I had to say. I was at a meeting the other day. I won't talk about what meeting it was. And it was just how we started. It was so amazing. And people realized, oh my God. And the guest speaker said, wow. She said, I feel safe. When she said it, I felt everything in my body. She said, I feel so safe. And she just started to cry. The guest speaker, Dr. Anna, she started to cry. She cried through the entire presentation. And she cried not because she was angry or hurt or sad. She was crying because she picked up in that space. It's a small, very small group of maybe about 13 people. She picked up that this was a place for her to show up and be okay, to share that she struggled financially before she became this person. She struggled being a single mother. She struggled. She was able to share. She shared all of that. And she cried throughout the presentation. But I knew for a fact, come on, Christina, you got it. Christina, you got it. It was the love and the healing. The love and the healing poured into her. And she felt it. So we have to be intentional about that when we have those conversations. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. ABC. That's really powerful. And yes, love and healing. We have other comments that say, like, really, this is an impactful and powerful conversation.
Thank you.
We have one more question that says, how can we bring this conversation to the uneducated, undeserved, and underrepresented in our urban communities?
We have to, absolutely. And I thank you for saying that question like you did. And I love what you said, the uneducated, the underserved, the underrepresented. And you said something, I think it was a mispronunciation, Dr. And you said the undeserved, but that actually is a good one. You actually, I think your intuition put that extra word in, because guess what? There are many people who think that many people are not deserving of this kind of invitation, not deserving of this kind of conversation. Who decides who is deserving of this? So guess what? You are right. Thank you for asking that question. We need to bring this conversation. Here's how we do that. How do we use, let's listen me carefully now. And this, I'm giving this to the equity team. I'm giving this to Leslie to carry. Leslie, I'm totally giving this to you. How do we share this kind of conversation with the community? So it may be, Leslie, that you want a video like this to be sent out to more people, not the regular Western listserv, but in other spaces, in communities. You may say, you know what, we need to engage community more. Dr. Anna may say, you know what, Dr. Campbell, we need to listen to that question and we need to go into certain urban communities. Maybe we are doing a school, offering schools to drop in conversation. Maybe we are offering the police unit in our community and the clinics and the different places where they deal with LGBTQ people. Maybe we are inviting them specifically, Leslie, to a conversation with Dr. ABC and other panelists that you have had. Maybe we are doing intentionally going to community, and community don't mean all the persons in Western, but the persons even outside of Western. How we need to do that. So that's something to us to think about. And I can tell you, it's not easy. So don't think I'm asking you to do it today, Leslie. It's not easy because I'm even working on that too. How do I take my message even further? And I know I'm engaged with community, but how do I take it even in those underserved areas? As you said, in those underrepresented areas. And what I've done in spaces when I go is even, I can tell you financially, I have had communities who said, oh, I wish I could afford you, Dr. ABC, because I want you to come and speak here. And I said, well, you can afford me. How much do you have? Whatever you have is what I'm charging. There are many ways for us to do the work. So yes, I do very well, and I am paid well for what I do because I deserve that and more. But also a part of reaching other communities is showing up without even the money in those spaces. And that's powerful. I have given back community money before because I realize I'm happy to get it because I need it, but I realize in that particular situation, they need me more than I need that. And that's me giving back to that community. So we have to find ways to use our power, our privilege, our access to do the work in those underrepresented, underserved communities. Thank you, thank you, thank you for that question.
Amazing. Thank you for your answer as well. We have another question that's honestly close to my heart. So what do you think leaders in diverse communities, so racial community leaders, religious leaders, politicians, should do to engage with the queer community? Why do you think they are not trusted by queer folks or often fail to engage with them?
Absolutely powerful question, powerful. So I'm going to take the second part. We have a lot of religious, I'm going to go there, religious leaders and religious organizations who believe the way to build trust is for you to tell, I'm going to tell you what to do so I can trust you. I want to repeat that. We have a lot of communities, especially religious community, who their idea of trust is, I'm going to tell you what to do so I can trust you. That's not the way to go about it. The way to go about it is, I'm going to treat you a certain way, get to know who you are, build relationships so you can trust me. The onus is not on queer people to build a trust. Let me repeat that. The onus is not on queer people to build a trust. I am a racialized man, a Black man. The onus is not on me to walk in a room full of white people to tell you, hey, I am Black. Don't be racist to me. That's not my job. Your job is to treat me in a way that I can walk away and safely say, I felt safe with those bunch of white people. I felt like I belonged. I felt trusted. I felt respected. I felt worth. I felt value. So until those of us with our power and our privilege and our access understand that we need to exercise humanness and humility and the love and empathy we speak so highly of in churches. Because I'm going to tell you something. This is my story, Dr. Anna. My biggest hurt I felt came from my church in Jamaica. And that is for the recording. Oh, that is for the recording. My biggest hurt, the one time in my life, and I want to get there because I feel like I can feel my emotions coming up. The one time in my life that I considered that I should not be living anymore was because of church. So church and religious leaders, you need to exercise and demonstrate the love that you talk so much about. When I go to, and just so you know, Dr. Anna, I have spoken at a lot of Catholic schools and boards. They like me and I love them, okay? And when I go there, I always take the opportunity to say, since you are Catholic, let me talk about how are you demonstrating the love of Jesus that you so profess. Show me how it's being demonstrated, because I catch them with that. Show me. The Bible says that their Bible says everywhere he went, he was doing good. Show me how you are demonstrating that love. So it's important that they do that. This first part of your question is what do you think of leaders in diverse communities do to engage queer community? And this is what we just talk about. Get to be in relationship with queer communities. So if a religious community want to understand queer folks, wouldn't it be lovely for those religious leaders to invite a whole bunch of queer folks to a dinner and a conversation, a meal around a table, a conversation where we listen to queer people tell their stories, when they can tell their own stories, and as a priest and as a leader and as a whatever bishop and whatever title you use, you can hear what the community is saying. Isn't that what we said is 101 of consultation, is to listen to the community? Listen to what they're saying. Listen to how, you know, if in my Christian community, listen to how all of us had to hide to go to gay spaces, and then we hide and lie and change our clothes and put on our choir uniform and come back to church. Listen to how we have been navigating church. Listen to how we have been crying. Listen to how we've been doing these things. Listen to how we come to a building like a church where we love, but we felt dirty every time we come inside because the message says you are wrong, you are nasty, you are demonic, you are not what our God and our priest and our leader thinks of you should be. How do we sit in these spaces for years? People ask me all the time, Dr. Anna, how do you sit in a church on a choir, in a choir gown, sitting so beautiful, Dr. Campbell, listen to the preacher reminding you you are demon possessed and you are hellbound because you are maybe gay. I've lived that life, Dr. Anna. I have lived that life. And when I take off my choir gown and I go back home, I feel dirty and useless and worthless and unworthy and unloved. I had to leave religious space to find religion. That's for a next time and for you to invite me back, Anna. I can't give you the whole thing. So that's my little cliffhanger for you, Anna. I had to leave religious spaces to find religion, because there was no love in that space. I always leave you wanting, Leslie. That's why I love you so much. Thank you so much for asking those questions. I hope I really, truly answered your questions as best as I can. I answered from my heart. I answered the answer that I really have from my lived experience. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. ABC. It's been our pleasure to have you, and I'm pretty sure that we're going to do our best to invite you over in person so that we can share, and then you can also share your knowledge and your spirituality with the Western community. That would be lovely. So again, thank you so much for today. Thank you so much for reminding us about the importance of building relationships and avoiding tokenism. So thank you, and thank you for coming, all of you who participated in this session today, who were asking questions or who were just listening. Thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you another time.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.